Good evening, Razorback fans. We want to welcome you to the one, the only Hawg Talk podcast live from the Electrical Supply Guys studios. We are part of the Believe and Buzz Radio networks, and you can hear us on all podcast platforms. Also on the TuneIn app on the Believe TuneIn Radio, and as well as Buzz 2 106.7 in Central Arkansas. So please like, rate, and review all of our podcasts. I'm your host, Porter Hayes of Sports and Culture Arkansas. Alongside me is Jacob Davis from Arkansas Fighting and Saturday Down South. And we're presented by Arkansas Brewing Company and Bet Online, and where you can find all your betting aspects and bet online where the game begins. No football for Arkansas this past week. We got to catch up on some other games. Look at Auburn. They had a bye week, is also coming into the game next Saturday. So, I guess with both teams, Jacob, coming off a bye in the same week, there's really no advantage either team has. Arkansas coming off that win going into the bye week, much needed win against Auburn. I mean, not much luck against them. So you know what happened with the fumble that was not a fumble, and I'm sure that still resonates with Arkansas. And last year, Bo Nix, of course, having the game of his life or game of his career against Arkansas. So getting back on the winning track to really get them a better bowl game, get them back to, on the winning track in the SEC. So what did you get to do over the weekend on your bye weekend, and what's looking forward to this Auburn week?
Yeah, man. So we went to the pumpkin patch at Family Farm in Malvern, had a good time, and took a lot of pictures. Let Sophie do her first thing by herself. She rode a train. She's a 1-year-old, just turned 1 2 weeks ago, and she rode. It wasn't really a train, but she got to ride on it was a John Deere riding lawnmower, and it had like a bunch of benches attached to it, and chained Sophie in there pretty good. And we were freaking out as parents, waiting on her around the pond. And then the first time she sees us, she's over there like, hey, like, so you're thinking, okay, so. It's not too bad of a deal. So I wasn't now from now on, I'm thinking maybe she is all right. Maybe she can be a little bit independent now than what she was, which is really cool.
Well, that's what happens with the first child. You always freak out a little bit more, and go through and let them grow up. But that's always the best thing about being a parent and watching your child grow up. And where she's at now, I'm telling you, just from experience, this is where you're going to learn something new every day. Between 1 and 2, they're going to just start doing new things every day that's going to really, really amaze you.
Oh, yeah. So we watched a little bit of football this weekend. Man, I tweeted out last night, Mississippi State had not scored an offensive touchdown in Tuscaloosa. And it almost didn't happen. They almost were shut out again in Tuscaloosa offensively. And I got a kick out of that. Got a kick out of Jimbo Fisher squandering another game against a intra-league school. Man, South Carolina, they're looking a lot better. I think them in Oregon, like you think that the way Georgia just handled them, they would go on and just spiral out of control. And both teams are undefeated since their losses against Georgia earlier this season. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting Saturday, interesting week coming forward, especially for Arkansas. Can they pick up the all-elusive victory this weekend against Auburn, a team that you haven't beaten 6 consecutive seasons? You currently trail them in the series overall 19-11, and you're getting beat by an average of 29 points over the last 6 games. So this could be the opportunity that Arkansas has to go on the road, pick up a win in league play and continue on throughout the season, building your resume in hopes of getting a New Year's Day bowl.
Yeah, and we go back to that Mississippi State game. I mean, we kind of knew the way that the Alabama-Tennessee game ended. If you look, and then that kick was blocked.
Yeah.
Bama got a piece of it, and it still went through, and everybody was like, Alabama's not going to lose 2 in a row. And I'll tell you what, for the people that come out and say that Saban's done and they're losing their grip, and I've fed into that, I've been caught up in it myself, but you know good and well that Saban's not going to lose 2 in a row. I don't know when the last time they have. You'd have to go back a ways where they've lost 2 games in a row. But we've seen it. I mean, what the best Mississippi State team can offer. But when you're going into Tuscaloosa and that defense, it's a lot different when you're playing a real defense opposed to, a defense that's struggling and the secondary issues that Arkansas has. But then South Carolina, how they've, as I was talking to a guy from South Carolina, you kind of think that South Carolina wishes they'd be playing Arkansas right now instead of earlier in the season, because in Arkansas side, thankful that they played them early in the season.
Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you right now, it might be a different outcome if Arkansas and South Carolina play right now. And as bad as I even want to even say that, it's true. Just how well they're playing. And listen, that just shows you what happens when you get that momentum. When a team gets that momentum and that belief, and you start playing for your coach and your state and your school, anything can happen. And I will say, though, too, I mean, the game over Texas A&M was good. That was the first time they've ever beat Texas A&M in program history. I mean, that just shows you where they've come. But they've also got the back end of their schedule, kind of like Arkansas's, is where it's a little bit – and LSU is another team that you're looking at like what we 2 weeks ago thought that this was going to be a back end easier part of the schedule. It's kind of looking different now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. LSU, man. How about that? I don't understand how you don't put LSU in front of Ole Miss, and those rankings are at least maybe 13, 14, or 15, 16, because, man, LSU just opened up a can on them. That Jaden Daniels guy, he saw it. I tweeted that out early in that game, and people gave me flack. But that guy, he is a gamer. He may not be the best quarterback that you have out there, but Brian Kelly's doing a heck of a job at LSU. Getting guys in the right spot. It didn't get off to a good start early. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't think I thought Brian Kelly might have been in over his head week 1 when they lost to Florida State. But they have rebounded, and they look really, really dangerous. The defense is starting to go to the ball. I mean, they're attacking attacking defense. Then you got Joe Fouché and Greg Brooks at former Razorbacks out there making plays. That one-handed interception by Joe Fouché was just beautiful. Man, that LSU game in Fayetteville is going to be a interesting looking game, especially with how Arkansas struggles to stop the run at times, and the way Jaden Daniels made Mississippi look really he was running through them like Swiss cheese out there, man. I mean, there was holes through that whole defense for Jaden to run through. He had 5 touchdowns, so. Yeah, Arkansas, man, they may have their hands full. And I know KJ's licking his chops when the Ole Miss comes to Fayetteville, because Ole Miss is not physical. They showed us that, yeah, they had a weak schedule, and, yeah, they were 7-0, but it was a weak 7-0 going into that game. So, yeah, Arkansas's got a lot on that back end of the schedule, and you're just hoping now, man, if they can just come out 6-6, we'll be all right.
Yeah, because you look at Liberty. I mean, taking care of BYU the way they do. I mean, that's another game. And Devin says Liberty and LSU are the toughest games left. I mean, I would say other than the Auburn game and the Missouri game, because Missouri kind of showed their cards in escaping by Vandy. They looked like they were a team that was trying to turn things around and get some momentum going. But, it just – but Liberty's going to be coming in here in a couple of weeks, and you see the semblance of what happened with Missouri State, and you're like, oh, man, it's not going to be that easy of a game.
Yeah, and Liberty's on their 4th-string quarterback too, which is crazy to think that Hugh Freeze is putting up those kind of numbers with a quarterback that he didn't ever intend to start the season. He had Charlie Brewer hurt in the first game, that former Baylor transfer up there at Liberty. So, Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think Liberty's going to be able to put up points. I think it's going to be another Arkansas BYU type of offensive track meet, at least through three quarters. Arkansas's got the size, though, and I think the most important thing this week, Porter, is Arkansas was able to get healthy.
Yeah.
We already know that Bumper wasn't healthy. Maybe Drew wasn't playing at 100%. You've got a bunch of secondary guys coming back this week. And if you get healthy and you start getting that momentum, you go down there to Auburn and you take care of business, things kind of change. Your momentum swings back to you. And these guys haven't quit on Sam Pittman. They showed that last week against BYU, especially with the way they finished that game, where they didn't allow a point in on defense in the second half, and only had not second half, but the fourth quarter, and allowed only like 54 yards of offense. Like, I know it's a small sample size, but you're hopeful that if you can stop the run game against Auburn, you're going to be able to stay in this game and maybe can control the line of scrimmage, because you're going to have to stop Tank Bigsby. You're going to have to stop Auburn's quarterback. His name is slipping out of Ashford or something like that. Robbie Ashford. He's a quick cat too. So if you can stop the run game against Auburn, you're going to have a chance to be successful and win that game.
Yeah, and you got to, because the thing is you're going into these ballots offenses, Auburn coming up. Last week or last time out they had against Ole Miss, Robbie Ashford had 140 yards passing, 2 interceptions. Bigsby had 179 yards on 20 carries. So you look at what's going on with these teams, they are playing in Liberty the same way. So, when you look at the score and you're like, okay, that looks alarming. But both of these games, Liberty's win over BYU, they took advantage of the running game.
Yeah.
Ed Hunter had 213 yards on 23 carries, but only had 1 touchdown. And Bennett had 247. So these 2 games coming up is going to really test this defense because of how balanced they are. And we know, Big Tank Bigsby is the bread and butter of the Auburn's team. So both of these offensives coming up, basically, if you make them one-dimensional, and that goes to any game. Anytime that Arkansas can make a team one-dimensional, they have a very good chance of winning. But you go back to the Mississippi State game, and you let the guy go running for a long, get as many rushing yards as they do with, Will Rogers in the passing. It's hard to stop both. So you got to make them one-dimensional, really key on the running attack of Auburn, and I don't say you could stop him, but you can contain him to, maybe hold him under 150 yards in a touchdown. So
yeah,
that's what we're really looking forward to and of course, what we haven't heard much of is, and I think it's just the style of offensive you've played, is when you're trying to drop, rush 3, drop 8. But I think this is where we need to see Bumper Pool and Drew Sanders get back on track. We need to hear their names more in the tackle column, and hear their names more, because you really hadn't heard much of them the past 2 weeks.
No, you haven't been. You're going to have to hear Chris Paul's name. He's a number 27. He's a stout creature. I mean, I've not seen a linebacker as physical looking as him in a long time. Maybe since 2014, 2015, with especially with like Montreal Spade, who had a tremendous last season as a Hawg. I mean, he looked good. Chris Paul, I think if you can maybe pull out Drew, rotate Drew and Bumper out, have Chris Paul, Pooh Paul out there, and give them as many breaks as possible, I think you're going to have a chance there to really, really do some things in the 4-2 look. Because you're going to have to stop the run game. I think you're going to have everybody healthy. I mean, Campbell really emerged last week against BYU, a guy that can really stop the run. And then you have your pass rush to trying to control the gap, stay in your lane, and hopefully float the ball runner into the ball carrier into your hands. Kind of dictate where he goes. Kind of like the old Rob Smith defense with the Bermuda Triangle with Darius Milan, Trey Flowers, and Montreal Spate. They knew what was going on before the snaps, and they adjusted and made the flow of the play go to that defensive side. And that's what I want to see a little bit more out of Barry Odom, because they're going to run heavy at Auburn. And so maybe trying to dictate what Auburn does each play and direct them to the linebacker and or either Bumper or Drew on each side, see if you can stop them there.
Yeah, because the past 2 games, they've only averaged, 3 tackles each game. So really getting your, because that's your captains, and they're a run heavy game. So it's going to be what is you talk about Barry Odom? What does he do now? Kind of getting back into the running game as not the blitzing and the blitz packages and the blitz schemes and the coverage. How do you really bring your safeties up, getting into the run coverage and make them pass, make them beat you deep? And so that's going to be the biggest key when it comes to, when we look at the key matchups of the game, it's going to be Arkansas's linebackers versus the running game, and see honestly. And then on the other side of it, how is Arkansas their run game going to go up against Auburn's defense, and see how, Auburn can stop the run.
Yeah. And Auburn allowed 3 100-yard rushers the week before last against Ole Miss. Don't forget about that. I mean, they had Jackson Dart and their 2 running backs rushed for like over almost 400 yards a couple of weeks ago in that game. So Arkansas, they have Rocket Sanders unleashed the guy. And I love what they did, and I know we mentioned it in the last podcast. I love what they were doing with the AJ Green and Shad Benny and getting those guys out in space. Not just trying to run between the tackles, but spread out the Auburn defense. And the way get the speed out there and get a little shake and bake, man. I think Arkansas's got a chance there on the outsides to make a difference and have Rocket Sanders maybe kind of do what he does, get his. If you can, if Rocket's always going to get his, but if you can get AJ Green and Davinian in the game and do their thing, you're going to have success on the offensive side. And plus, maybe get Dominique Johnson, continue to get him in there, give him a couple of carries, maybe in goal line situations or 3rd and short situations, and try to get him in there, get his confidence up. And I think Arkansas is going to have a good chance. I mean, and keep KJ healthy too. Don't let him run the ball too much or do too much anything outside the pocket.
Yeah, when you look at Auburn's last 3 games, I mean, you see that. I mean, LSU even had 185 yards rushing on them. But then you go to the next game against Georgia. They had 292 yards rushing against Auburn. So you're really going to treat this almost like the BYU game. And you're going to really have to impose your will, and you're looking at the last game with Ole Miss, and that they had 4 guys that went over 100 yards, and you're like, man, we got KJ, we got Rocket Sanders, we got Dominion. I mean, you got Green, you got all these guys that now also you got the guys that can come out of the backfield and catch. So when as a defense, you're struggling on the run game, that Arkansas is a run-first offense. This is where those screen plays, this where those, the wheel routes can come in and really the slants. When you got your linebackers cheating up on the run, this could be another huge game for Trey Knox, coming out of the tight end position. So I think this could be a big game for Arkansas, where it really opens up their offense, because you look at just how much Auburn is struggling. But then again, this could turn into a shootout. This could turn into which defense is going to bend, not break, and who's going to score. I know it comes down to whoever has the most points, but it could turn into an offensive shootout.
Well, the way this season has gone for Brian Harsin and at Auburn, like, you got to think about it. He's a lame duck coach, because outside of the Auburn brass, nobody knows what's going to happen to Brian Harsin after the season. He could stay. But it's usually historically, when you don't have an athletic director, you don't have a head coach. And right now, Brian Harsin's on borrowed time, because you hardly ever see a coach last at the end of the season without an athletic director in there. So are they going to be playing for Harsin? What is the mindset of this Auburn team? Nobody knows. And I think if Arkansas goes out there and punches them in the mouth a couple of times, how are they going to respond there on the Auburn defense?
Yeah, and they're sitting at 3-4 right now. So, after this, the Arkansas, then they got Mississippi State, Texas A&M, Western Kentucky before the Iron Bowl. So, I mean, you come out of this game against Arkansas and you drop down to 3-5. You lose against Mississippi State, you're 3-6, possibly 3-7 after that. I mean, they could lose 3 in a row, depending on how this. So this is when we talk about pivotal games. This is just as pivotal to Arkansas as it is Auburn. I think it's going to be more for Auburn because the coaching talk that we speak of. This could be the game that could just spiral everything downhill. And even if they were to beat Alabama, it's not enough to save his job. You can't tell me that they be 3-7 or 4-7 if they beat Western Kentucky going into the Iron Bowl. And if they do beat Alabama, because we've seen crazy things happen in that game, I don't think that's going to be enough to save his job. So
he could have beat him. He could have beat him last year.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have saved his job. That's just the honest to goodness truth. Is they do. It was not a match made in heaven by any point. Brian Harsin's been. I don't think he's been in over his head. I just think it's been an unhealthy relationship from the get go.
Yeah,
it's not. I mean, we've heard about it for 2 seasons now. I mean, he did not fit the culture. And if Auburn gets their way, they got that Yellowwood money, man. They're going to find them a coach. They're going to find them a coach. And,
there's been a lot of bad things. They don't know how to handle the money, though. There's been a lot of stories. Look at all the money they got in buyouts and trying to find the newest. And you can tell they have the little brother syndrome because it's almost like we want to be where Bama is. Let's try to get the newest, hottest thing to try to catch up when that's never going to be a possibility. There's no school out there that's ever going to match what Alabama. And I understand the position Auburn's in because that's your biggest rival. That's your in-state. That's who you look up to, that you want to be as a football program. And you have to live with that 365 days out of the year. But it's just the track record ever since Gus left has just been one of them things. It's almost like an Arkansas situation that they had a good thing going with him, but he just kind of ran out of time there. And I'm telling you what, that this is what I've always thought. And I'm glad that he did beat Alabama when he did, because I think that if Gus didn't beat Alabama the year he did, he was going to be the head coach of the University of Arkansas. I think it was in writing. I think it was almost a done deal. He beats Alabama and then Auburn counters. That's just my opinion on it. I'm sure there's a lot of people who probably disagree with me, but I just think that him beating Alabama got us to the point of where Arkansas is now, and we got Sam Pittman.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the whole thing with that was a messy ordeal, because you cannot sit there and wait on a coach to go out there. Because we saw how it ended with we thought we were getting Chris Beard at Texas Tech. We were waiting on him to lose at Texas Tech before they made it to the national championship game, and he ended up staying at Texas Tech. Honestly, you get Eric Musselman, and you're thinking, Chris Beard who? You cannot sit there and wait for a coach to lose a championship game, because, I mean, obviously, it's so funny because Arkansas and Auburn kind of have had a same kind of coaching dysfunction there for a while. I mean, they didn't want Gus, and they did. They didn't want Gus, and they did. And Gus was probably the only guy that was going to keep Auburn going for a while. They weren't down by any means. They were 6-4 the year they fired him, and so I thought that was a kind of a premature firing. I think you should never fire Gus, but man, I wish I go back thinking now, like maybe Arkansas was blessed without having to hire Gus Malzahn, because Gus had the benefit of recruiting the state of Atlanta, the state of Florida, Alabama. He had such a fruitful territory when it came to recruiting that his offensive philosophy wasn't hampered down by the guys that he was able to get. He wasn't going to come into the University of Arkansas and be able to have the success at the university, because Arkansas does not produce the amount of talent. I mean, I know that. I mean, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but Arkansas does not. They only produce like maybe 5 to 6 FBS, SEC level caliber players every single year. I don't think Gus would. I think Arkansas would be in the same place they're at with Sam Pittman right now. And you'd be paying a lot more money for Gus Malzahn than you would be for Sam Pittman.
Yeah, I mean, because they already had it. Was it 40? Was it 49 million? They had. There was talks of.
It was
of
a lot. It was like $7. Yeah, it was like $7.5 million a year for 7 years. You're right. That's the
So,
figures we heard.
and I think he would have turned out almost like a Mike Anderson deal. I think he would have been a 7-5 coach, a 6-6 coach, or maybe got an 8-5, 8-4 season. You know, one of them kind of deals of just he might have had one hot year and then kind of slowly went back down. But I don't think he would have got to the point, because the thing is what Sam Pittman and bringing in the coordinators. I don't know what coordinators would have Gus have brought in. I mean, that's the thing that you don't know when it comes to hiring a coach. Is we always talk about the head coach, but you got to look at who would he brought in? Like, who would have been his assistants and his coordinators? And
Right.
you look at what Sam Pittman's done and his coordinators, and as much as flack as they get, like we said last week, you know, there wasn't really too many people talking about what they did when they opened up the offense. So hopefully, like I said, this is going to be another monkey they can get off their back. They can really get back into the grind. I think the BYU game is going to be more important of a win than we can realize. And I think when it comes down to the end of the year, we're going to look back at that BYU win, just like the UAPB, as crazy as that is to even say. I mean, getting a win before a bye week and getting them guys healthy and getting, you know, and not just getting them healthy, but they don't have a game to worry about. You know, they can really focus on getting healthy. You know, they're not trying to get them back just so they can get them healthy for the upcoming game. They got a week off to really get to 100%, or as close as you could get to 100% at this point. And Sam Pittman alluded to that, all the players that were not healthy and banged up. So there's a lot of guys that are out there that he hasn't even mentioned by name that we could see a totally different team come Saturday against Auburn, because the fact that who is banged up that we don't even know about.
Well, you know, the secondary is all banged up because they were trying to get guys in practice that were freshman wide receivers coming in. So, man, hopefully you get Corey Johnson and Jaden Johnson and Miles Slusher and all those guys back. And maybe the complexion of the defense changes, because you're not going to have to worry about having guys get beat defensively over and over and over again. You're going to be able to finally have your starters back and maybe a sense of normalcy and not giving up so many yards through the air.
Yeah, and before we hit the break too, just one last thing before we go to break. We're going to cover the basketball. It's just coming into this again at Auburn, this getting a road win, I think, is going to really benefit their confidence. I think that's the biggest thing coming into the game, is getting your health, you know, your physical health. I think coming in and getting this win on the road is going to be a mental boost, and that confidence of knowing, you know, we went to BYU, got the win there, week off. Now we're going up against, and that's the thing people's been saying, well, it was always an excuse. It's always somebody wanting to downplay it. Well, that was BYU. Now you're going to be playing an SEC team. You're going to be playing an SEC defense again. So I think it's like, as much as people want to discredit the win, this is going to be very important for them to go into the Plains, into Jordan Hare, and get this win.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people before the season that said, man, that BYU game scares me.
Yep.
No, I mean, that to go to your point there, you can't go and say, oh, that game scares me before the season, and then you get in there and now you're seeing, oh, they're just 4-3 coming in. Now they're 4-4 and fighting for their bowl eligibility lives after getting blown out by Liberty. So, I mean, there's always ways that teams respond. I mean, there's some teams that can be uber talented and then go 8-4. Like, you see it all the time. Like, it all comes down to coaching. And I think Arkansas has got the coaching. I think they had their momentum back, and I think they're going to be able to go down to Auburn and pick up a victory and kind of shush the doubters.
Yeah. And well, like I said, we're going to touch more on that Wednesday on our weekly preview show. We're going to have an Auburn beat writer come on, and we'll announce that in the upcoming days. But we're going to head to a commercial break. After the break, we're going to break down basketball. We'll start their unofficial start exhibition tomorrow night. We'll break down that after the break. Do you need those pesky stumps ground before the winter? Your pasture brush hogged or need your driveway bladed? Here at Grind It Right Outdoor Services, we offer more than just stump grinding. We have recently expanded our business to include tractor work as well. So along with stump grinding, we offer bush hogging, land clearing, grading driveways, placing, and even spreading gravel. We are locally owned and operated, so call Danny today for a free quote at 205-377-2662 or 479-530-1641. Again, that is 205-377-2662 or 479-530-1641.
McCoy Tiger Drug Store of Sheridan, Arkansas has been the top pharmacy in all of South Central Arkansas since 1895. They were also the 2020 Good Neighbor Pharmacy of the Year. They not only fix you up with your prescription with timely and friendly service, but also an elite gift shop. All your OTC needs, baby and wedding registries, tuxedo rentals, and much more. They are located at 821 North Rock Street in Sheridan. Give them a call today at 870-942-5121.
Camelot Exteriors specializes in identifying hail, wind, and other storm damage, as well as residential and commercial roof installations and re-roofing. We use only the highest quality materials from certified suppliers while putting a lifetime labor warranty on all of our roofs. Our mission is to provide our customers with the highest quality roofing project customized to fit each one of their needs and to provide exceptional service through the entire process. Camelot Exteriors is based in Norman, Oklahoma, but we proudly currently serve 9 other states as a premier nationwide roofing company. So call us today at 833-799-7663 for your free estimate. Camelot Exteriors, your storm damage restoration experts.
Shelby Taylor Trucking serves all your timberland needs in South Central Arkansas. With over 50 years in the industry, Shelby Taylor Trucking has established themselves as trustworthy leaders in the industry. From planting to harvesting to hauling your timber, Shelby Taylor Trucking is ready to serve you. Follow them on all social media platforms at Shelby Taylor Trucking. Learn more by visiting their website at staylortrucking.com. That's staylortrucking.com.
If you want the best service and prices in Northwest Arkansas and Southwest Missouri for all your plumbing and electrical needs, then look no further than Corey Hyman, the plumbing electrical supply guy. Corey's in full steam ahead and providing the best electrical, plumbing, and septic supply service around. So call Corey at 479-301-8220 or email him at chindman, that's HINDMAN, at andersonp.com. Again, that is 479-301-8220. And welcome back to the Hawg Talk podcast. Jacob, I mean, I'll tell you what, for one of the most anticipated basketball seasons to date, we haven't really spent much time talking about them because right in the middle of football season, but and it's crazy how fast this year has flown by, but it's here. I mean, tomorrow night against Rogers State, Arkansas men's basketball kicks off there. I guess you could say the next two is exhibitions. So they got Rogers State and then Texas down in Austin. So very excited to see what this team does. And there's a lot of hype. I don't think that when it comes to the basketball, it's almost like it's been building up. So what do you think the difference is? As someone who's been a fan all their life, what do you think the difference is between this buildup of Eric Musselman and what he's done with this team, opposed to this is just not a flash in the pan, but say the team hadn't had that much success and then they get this recruiting class?
Yeah. So you think about it going back then. I'm going to swing this a different way. Back in the day, in the 90s, 80s, and the 70s, it was barbershop, coffee shop talk at your local diner. Talk about how good this team's going to be. We're going to talk about Moncrief, Ron Brewer, and then we're going to talk about the Todd Days and Big O's of the world. And now with social media, like we saw it with the football program and how people were pumped up. Like, this is going to be the year things come together for Arkansas. You've got all these transfers in football, and now, I mean, that to me is kind of how this is going. This is becoming, because Arkansas, they've got you've been leading up to this, and this is the expectation that Musselman set for himself, especially in year one, because he played 6 freaking guys that season with the leader Mason Jones, and then when Isaiah Joe went down, the only offensive player you had to depend on that was consistent was Mason. And you continue to build. You signed your first McDonald's under All-American under Musselman and Moses Moody, and you get all those guys, and you were hyped. You were thinking, okay, this team's going to be special. Then COVID hits. And then Isaiah Joe backs out and goes to the draft again. And you're thinking, okay, this team's still going to be good. Now it's just building up with how crazy Arkansas Twitter is. Like, people are just at the top hoping this team is going to be the one, because you got 3 potential lottery picks on this team, on this roster, and then you cherry pick the best players from several different schools, and then you bolster from where you had just Jalen Williams, who was your defensive stalwart down low, and then you bring in 4 guys that could play really key minutes down low in the post. Arkansas's got a complete team this season, Porter, and I'm really excited to see what they can do with Nick Smith running this offense, because we know that Anthony Black's going to be the point guard, and he's going to get his with assist-wise, steal-wise, and be a difference maker. But Nick Smith, man, he could potentially be the best player to ever come out of the University of Arkansas and be the first Razorback ever drafted number 1. He's that good. Like, there's you think about it. You think about the guys like Corliss Williamson and how great he was coming out of high school. Like, Nick Smith is just as good at the guard position. And I think that the way Eric Musselman and his basketball team markets it on social media, now you got to back it up.
Yeah, that's definitely,
you got to back it up.
When you're the national freshman of the year, I mean, there's a lot of, hype that comes in. There's a lot of hype that goes into this, and this is a school that's never experienced this. So there's nothing that, Musselman's ever done. So this is new for the team, and this is where it's going to get interesting is there's nobody to help coach like, hey, man, how do we handle this? How do we handle this hype? How do you handle the freshman of the year coming in? How do you handle all the SEC accolades? How do you handle the expectations of you better be undefeated by the time conference season rolls around? I mean, there's going to be this is the thing. Like, they got Texas, which is going to be an exhibition game. And then you got North Dakota State, Fordham, South Dakota State. And then you got the Maui Invitational. You got Louisville, Texas Tech, and Creighton. I mean, those are going to be some tough games. So when you come out of that, let's say by the time Thanksgiving rolls around, I mean, what's going to be the expectations of this team, where their record's going to be at, where they should be, and what happens if they're not? I mean, what happens? That's what's really going to make this team, we're going to show their growth is, if you come out of this 14-0 or whatever, you start the season 14-0. Okay, that's where we expected you. That's the hype. That's where you should be. But what's going to happen is when this team faces that adversity, when they drop that 2-game losing streak or lose that game that they shouldn't have lost, and then the questions and having to answer the questions, or Nick Smith Jr. comes into his first couple of games and doesn't score the points that you think he should score, that's what's going to make this team grow. And if this team goes undefeated, hey, that's cool. But that's what you're going to see out of this team is let's see what happens after they hit that first 2-game losing streak, if that happens. And that's where you're going to see where this team grows. Yeah.
And you think about the tenure under Musselman, he overachieved with the Mason Jones roster his first year. He did what we thought he would do with the limitations of COVID. His second season with Moses Moody and so all the other guys there, and then he overachieved last year. Believe it or not, whether we want to admit it or not, he overachieved with that roster. Because you had Jalen Williams out there who got drafted, but you had JD Notae carrying that offense last year. and you had guys that Trey Wade, like, waited like 25 games for him, and then come NCAA tournament time, you have Devo there, Trey Wade there. He gets the most out of the guys whenever it's time to get the hit the rubber meets the road. You know, they lost against Western Kentucky in year one. That was an unexpected loss. They had like where they get blown out by Tennessee, LSU, and Alabama in year two, and you're thinking, man, this team maybe they're not as good. And then last year they lost to freaking Hofstra.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, man, this team's not going to do anything. They're not even going to make the NCAA tournament. And lo and behold, they were in the Elite Eight, and the SEC wasn't even talking about them on their own network. So now this year, you know those expectations because everybody, like you said, everybody's looking at you like, yeah, you're expected maybe to go undefeated through non-conference play. And what's going to happen is if you do lose those couple of games, where's your team's mind going to be at too? Because you know, with the high expectations comes from fans and people in the national media. Where's your head at? Like, is this team going to be able to respond the way that his other three teams have?
So, do you think this is a Sweet 16 or bust year, or even Elite Eight? Or I mean, would you even go that far as saying this is an Elite Eight or bust type team?
I think it's a Sweet 16 or bust. Just because you look at the preseason rankings and you're bringing in the three freshmen and you're bringing in all these new transfers too, I think they at least get to the Sweet 16. Now, do they advance past that? I don't know, but I think that this is the best look of right now, not looking forward in the future because the recruiting's still hot. But this is a team that Musselman's going to have the best chance to win a title at with the Hogs. I mean, just right now, living in the moment, I think that this is the team that if you're going to do it now.
Well, yeah, because you don't know how many people on this team is going to leave, go to the NBA. So, yes, you're looking at this team, yeah, this is going to be – and that's where I think if you want me to be frank about it, I think this is going to be an Elite Eight or Final Four or bust type team to me because you look at what he's done the past 2 years and what you said about last year's roster. What you have with this year's roster and going into this season, it's going to be hard for me to sit there and say that if they don't make it to the Elite Eight, I should say. Final Four is great. But I think if this team gets bounced in the second round or in the Sweet 16, I just think it's going to be a deal that it's going to be a disappointment. Because just with the hype, if there wasn't that much hype around this team or the talent, I mean, you look at this roster, I mean, top to bottom, Black, Council, Brazil, Nick Smith Jr., Devontae, Graham, Pinion, Barry Dunning, Jordan Walsh, the Mitchell twins, Kamani Johnson, I mean, Darian Ford. I mean, all these guys, you're looking at this roster 10 deep. And that's what's scary about this team is he could legitimately put two groups of five out there and have a lot of success. And I think what really has stumped them in the last 2 years is they got out physicaled.
Yeah.
You know, they got out physicaled by Duke last year and they got out physicaled by Baylor the year before. I think that's what's going to get them over the top when we're talking about Elite Eight or bust is the fact that they're going to have guys that are ready to bang. They're going to have your guards. Nick Smith Jr. is not going to be afraid to go in there and yank on someone. You know, Black, we've seen him. I mean, this kid, freshman, 6'7", he's going to go in there and poke on people. I mean, that's just what – these kids are not scared. And I'm not saying that anybody last year was scared. I'm not taking away from any of the previous rosters. But you've got multiple guys. And what I'm getting at with these guards – and when it goes to the other players is you're not going to have to rely on just 2 or 3 people to get the boards. You're not going to have to rely on 2 or 3 guys to get out there and bang underneath. You've got 4 or 5 guys that can go in there and you got a guard at 6'7" and Anthony Black that's going to be able to go in there. And you got another guard, Barry Dunning Jr., 6'6", Jordan Walsh, 6'7". I mean, you have some huge guards that are some of the big, Kamani Johnson's a 40, 6'7". you've got two guards that are just as big as he is. So, I mean, that's
Yep.
what's going to be the big difference when it comes to this team is you got size from the 1 to the 5, or if you can even consider anybody a 5 anymore, say so 1 to 4. But, I mean, it's going to be a very exciting team to watch.
Right, and you think about it, like here in the past, you've had to depend on guys that were smaller. Like the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft this year was Banchero. The guy was 7'1". Arkansas didn't have a response for that guy last year in the Elite Eight. Like he was just going up and getting his as much as he wanted to. Now you've got the Mitchell twins, you've got Jalen Graham, and you've got I know I'm missing one more post player, Trevin Brazil.
Yep.
Those guys are like 6'9" plus type of guys that can go up there and rebound and if you don't have the size, Arkansas is going to overwhelm you with size. That's something Arkansas hasn't ever really had. I don't know, even back in the Nolan Richardson days, Arkansas didn't have big guys at all. I don't know of any other guys that have really been 7-footers beside Stephen Hill in the past 20 years since the Nolan Richardson days. Like Arkansas has not had this much size at all the positions ever. And that's what's really impressive. Maybe Jalen Tate and Moses Moody's year. I know they were two pretty big guards, but Arkansas has not had this much size on a team up and down ever. In my lifetime.
Yeah, and that's the thing you bring up. Chuck brings it up, and he says this team reminds me of the NOLA teams where you substitute 5 at a time without losing anything. Good friend of mine, Pat Jenkins, he got to go watch some of and he said that during the practices, what he has seen, he has not seen the hype or the level of play since those years. And he's been around the program and the team for a long time. And just the athleticism, and you're talking about iron sharpening iron. All these guys are practicing against each other, chomping at the bit to go play other teams. And that's the thing. It's either this team's going to – I have a feeling this team's going to shoot out like a cannon, ready to play these other teams. And I know it's going to be an exhibition game, but I think tomorrow night's going to be a dunk fest. And then you're getting to go play Texas. And I guess you could say record book-wise, meaningless game. But I guarantee you Musselman's going to treat this like it was a Final Four game, and I think they're going to come out and they're going to surprise some people.
I think they'll play a good 20 minutes worth of ball with the starters and then kind of rest all your guys. I think Chris Beard's going to kind of do the same thing, kind of see what you got. That's just me, but I don't know. I don't know what's going on in Eric Musselman's head. He want to get the best out of his team.
I don't think so. This is Arkansas, Texas, bub.
I know.
This is Arkansas, Texas. They ain't no.
We talked about that last week. Yeah, we talked about that last week. And as much bad blood, you don't want to go out and just lose in the exhibition season and against your most hated rival in program history. Like,
yeah, tomorrow.
And the thing is, it's going to be. Arkansas could probably score. They could probably name their score and go get it. Like they could probably spot Roger State a good 50 points for the first half, and then go out there and do their thing. Like that's the whole thing with Texas, though. Is you've got the Aurora. I think it could be a pretty good house full of people down there in Texas.
Well, yeah, because they're going to be opening a new stadium.
Oh, are they? I didn't know
they're going to be opening their new arena.
So the hype's there for them too.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's the thing. It's
players.
Texas. And here's the deal. This is another thing. This is what's going to happen to Arkansas this year. Then this is going to be one of them another uncharted territories that Arkansas is facing now. They're going to be that target. They're going to be the hunter. Everybody's going to want to beat them. Everybody's going to want to, give them their best game because this team has so much hype. Oh, well, this is the freshman of the year. This is the All-American. Hasn't even played a game yet, and he's an All-American. And they're like, let me show him. That's what's going to happen, and they're going to get everybody. And that's the thing. This is going to be – I'm telling you what, this is going to be one of the most exciting exhibition games in a long time because, you got Texas, like I said, and then you kind of drop off. You get a 3 – and this is another reason why I'm saying Roger State, you're going to get a mixture of playing everybody – Texas, I think it's going to be a full out. They're going to be playing the best they can because you got North Dakota State, Fordham, and South Dakota State to get ready for the Maui Invitational. So this team is so deep and talented. I think that you're going to have a lot of time before now in conference time to see which 5 mixes together. And I think Chuck was talking about earlier when it comes to, not being so crazy about expectations of this team before conference season, because we've seen with Muss, it takes him a long time. And everybody thinks just because this team's got a lot of talent, there's going to be more pressure, but you still got to figure out which five, as talented as they are, mesh together. So that could be a bigger problem because you do have the talent. You're going to have 10 guys that want to play just as much as everybody else. So I think this is going to be one of the best but most challenging years because I don't think Musselman's ever had to deal with this much talent before.
Never. I mean, you think about the NBA. Yeah, he was coach of the year. I think he had who was that one guy? Man, I can only see his bald head. That's all I can remember. But yeah, Coach Musselman had he won Coach of the Year at Golden State. He didn't have that much talent there, and then he went to Nevada. And he kind of transformed the basketball program there to a legitimate top 25 program, and now he's never assembled such a great roster of individual talent, and I think it's going to be interesting because you had the number 2 class coming in, and then Duke has the number 1 class coming in. I want to see what John Shire can do as the new head coach at Duke. I've got a buddy of mine that comes in the store all the time, and we kind of chit chat back, kind of give each other some rubs about how good each other's teams are going to be. I really think that, if Arkansas can get to the Final Four, it could be a replay of the '94 national championship game, depending on if Coach K to John Shire has a clean transition. I mean, then you got North Carolina.
Those shoes.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
And we thought that the guy at North Carolina having to fill in Roy Williams' shoes is going to have a rough time, and he won the national championship last year.
Mm-hmm.
Was that year 1 or year 2? Hubert Davis.
Herbert Davis,
so, Yeah. So it's going to be an interesting season. I think Arkansas has probably like one of the top most talented teams. You got 6 guys that could possibly be playing in the NBA next year. I mean, you never had that much talent, honestly. You never have. And so Eric Musselman has so much talent at his disposal that you just kind of – I'm nervous about it too because, like, I would lay in bed awake at night thinking – what do I do with this guy at this certain situation? That's why he gets paid so many millions of dollars a year to do this thing and be successful. That's
the thing. Danielle talks about the pool house a lot. I'm just wondering, there's sometimes that he's sitting there wondering what to do. You just go on out to the pool house for a little bit until you can figure this out because, but I guess, that's a great problem to have because we've seen what happens so many years with this team, man, and we just need one more piece. But exactly like what we've been talking about the last 2 years. We just need one more piece. We got 4 of them, 5 of them, 6 of them. They have an unlimited amount of talent when it comes to this team. And, man, if by any chance we're able to get a ticket, that's another crazy thing. Good luck getting a ticket this year. I'm going to try to go up and catch a game best I can. But I'll tell you what,
that may be an exhibition game tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, it might be a sellout. You don't know. I mean, that's the thing. It's like it's going to be crazy to see like the turnout and how crazy it is to how much these tickets are going to go for, especially that Kentucky. There ain't no way you're getting into that game. I mean,
no,
no
way.
I mean, they'll be taking tickets at Herman's to go get a glimpse of Coach Cal giving him crap. So
you're gonna have to put another section of seats, kind of like the dome at Syracuse, just to get your get 50,000 people in them seats so you can watch a game. I mean, that may be the expansion. Forget about making Bud Walton to a multi-purpose arena. You're gonna have to build another level to contain the excitement.
Oh, I know.
Of fans. Like that's what's crazy. Or
they were talking about possibly making more suites and less seats and stuff. Yeah. I think Alabama did that with their football stadium, but I'll tell you what, they might be rethinking that, taking the this thing back to the drawing board and seeing what happens because, if this team gets rolling and especially after next year or after this year, they keep on getting the recruiting classes in and they still get these, they might want to rethink on how many people how many seats they take away. Cause I mean, that's in all reality, that's why Bud Walton was even built in the first place. Cause Bud Walton could get a seat in Barnhill. You know,
No.
Frank Broyles gave up his seat, and that's the legend of Bud Walton Arena.
Yeah, like it was made like from the stories that I've heard. The floor, the court of the floor was built first, and then they built around the floor, like because they wanted to make sure you had the best seat possible. And there's not a bad seat in Bud Walton. I sat in the upper section, lower section. I've sat in the corner of the lower bowl. There's not a bad seat in Bud Walton Arena, and it's like that's the beauty of college basketball at Arkansas, is because I don't think any other team besides maybe Kentucky, Syracuse, and North Carolina can hold 20 something thousand folks.
Yeah. I don't know.
Every night.
Oh, well, North Carolina's got a big arena too. But I mean, now I guarantee it. Now they'll get in there. But you look at Duke; they'll never do anything to their arena. I mean, that's just one of the most prestigious arenas in the country, Rupp Arena. Right. You Fog Allen. You look at these arenas, and I'll tell you what. Even is it Gallagher Iba? Is that the Oklahoma State one?
Yeah, Gallagher Iba. Yeah.
It's just those arenas that have that aura to them. I mean, and they have that. And I think Oklahoma State's one of the most underrated arenas because how they have the fans right there sitting on top of you. I don't know if you've ever played much basketball up where I live, but Subiaco Academy, they had an arena like that where the bleachers were over you. And it just gave you this feel of the fans looking down on you. And it had this crazy feel to it. It was like an old school where the floor was way down low and then there was a huge brick wall up both sides and then the bleachers were above you. It's one of the hardest gyms I've ever played in. Yeah,
Junction City and Huttig. I was a small school kid growing up in Union County, Arkansas, and there was this place in Junction City. It was called Dual State Tournament. So you got both of the best teams from Louisiana and Arkansas to come in. And I tell you what, that place was packed. I played in one dual state tournament. And that was probably one of the craziest environments I've ever played a basketball game in. And you had seats all the way around you. And now they tore that down. I mean, yeah, I was obviously old, but they tore it down and made it a multi-purpose gym. I will always have memories of playing at Junction City. And then Huttig was the same way before they consolidated with Strong. Huttig had a dome. It was really cool, a really cool arena to play in. And I remember getting beat 31-0 in junior high in that arena.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we 31-0 in that arena. Last game ever played there. Yeah, but that was you could probably fit 5,000 or 6,000 people in Huttig's gym, and then probably maybe 10,000 people in Junction City. I mean, at Dual State, that place was the place to be. And I hate that it's torn down now, but that was a really cool place.
That's crazy. Well, I guess we're wrapping up on the show, but before we go, we're announced tomorrow we will have Coach Courtney Deifel on the Weekly Women's Sports Report. She'll be joining us tomorrow at 6 p.m. where we're going to be doing episode 3. Big shout out to the fans. We've been doing really, really well on the views and the likes and the comments of the show. It's been doing very well. So very excited to talk to Coach Deifel. But before we go, I really want to do a big shout out to Ozark and Elkins. I got to experience one of the coolest things ever. My son has autism, and he's been the equipment manager all year long for Ozark. And his teammates went to the coach before the beginning of the year and wanted him to be able to suit up and play in a game. And they were going to try to get it done. And they were kind of, trying to see which game to do it. And Elkins was their last home game. And a former guest of the show, Drew Morgan, former Razorback, is one of the assistant coaches up there. And just the response, allowing this to happen. I was a nervous wreck the whole game because I knew it was going to happen, but Elkins scored with like 15 seconds left and the clock's winding down. So I'm like, is this going to happen? Is this going to go? But I tell you what, just the amount of kids on Elkin's side that was cheering along with it, the fans. I mean, one of the greatest experiences of my son's life being he's been talking about it nonstop. So I just want to take this moment to really thank the school districts of Ozark, school district of Elkins for, as a parent, being able to experience this, because we sometimes don't have that chance to get to enjoy those things that other kids would get to. So the ones that out there that get to watch their kids every Friday night, every Thursday night, Monday night, Thursday night playing basketball and football and their sports all the time. I mean, we really take those moments for granted because it might be the only time I ever get to see him put on that jersey and do that. So again, thank you, big time. I'm gonna put it on social media, and I'll tell you what, it's blown up like a wildfire. So everybody who's sent me messages, sent me DMs, just said what it mean to them, because that's what it's about, touching other people's lives and really touching those parents that have kids with special needs. I mean, that's what you see, the Special Olympics banner that I hang in my office, and the Special Olympics silver medal. I take all that stuff seriously. So again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much, because that is a night I will never forget.
Absolutely. I just do want to invite everybody to like and subscribe to our show. Man, Porter, that is a heartwarming story. And I'm lost, and I'm teary eyed. That's
I couldn't look in the camera.
I haven't known anybody to have like this opportunity, and to know that your son was able to have this opportunity is quite special. And it's cool, because it kind of reminds me of the time that my little sister, who has Down syndrome, was voted on the homecoming court.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really special being able to see that, and the whole school voted for her. Like that was the cool thing. Her senior year was able to go out there and do that, and it made news and stuff too, and people were just talking about it for weeks. And that's the cool thing, is being able to see the love that is shown to these kids that aren't given the attention that they absolutely deserve, or the love they absolutely deserve, and being able to see this, the humbleness of the hearts of people to go out there and say, this is what's going to happen tonight, and we're going to make it happen. And being able, when you sent me that video, I didn't know what you were sending me, but then I heard Gavin's name over the PA announcer, and that was cool. Shout out to Elkins and Ozark. That was awesome.
You see the videos of other kids, like the kid at Lake Hamilton. You've seen the kids like in Pennsylvania a long time ago, the kid that had autism, and he was the equipment manager and then scored 21 points, ended up getting an ESPY award over it. But I'm telling you, when it's personal and you're there witnessing it, I mean, it hits you. There's so many emotions, and like I can't physically even look into the camera right now, knowing we're live, because of how it gets me. I mean, that's just one of them things that no matter what, that's my trigger, that's my dude. And just giving him the biggest hug, and just how he was so excited after the game. I mean, it's one of them things that, you cherish as a parent, and I'll never forget, man. Like I said, I can't thank everybody enough. And there was two kids in general, I can't even remember their names, but I mean, they were hopping right along with the Ozark team for Elkins and just patting him on the back. I mean, that's what the camaraderie when it comes to sportsmanship. And I think that's the biggest thing that I take away from it is as much as the Ozark fans was into it. I mean, the Elkins fan base, the players and coaches were just as ecstatic. I even had one of the refs that was reffing the game sit there and say that, that was the only time he's ever had to call play with tears rolling down his face, and, Drew Morgan was like, hey, man, I had a tear in my, the people who that knew nothing about the story, knew nothing about him, got moved by it. So, I mean, that's the thing that I really will always take away from it.
Yeah. But yeah, wrapping the show up, man. Lord. Yeah.
But anyway,
wrap the show up. Yeah. Make sure you go and like and subscribe to our podcast on Apple and YouTube and several other places. You can catch us on 103 or 106.7 the Buzz each Monday morning. Just thank y'all fans for being with us since day one, and let's call those Hogs this weekend victory.
That's right. And that will do it for another episode of the Hawg Talk podcast. Again, catch us tomorrow night on the weekly Women's Sports Report as we have the softball coach, Courtney Deifel. That will do it. Catch you tomorrow.